It's nice out.
Did the puppies see you yet?
Yeah, this morning, sure.
I mean, I just let them out after I fed them,
Yeah.
so they just saw you.
No, they didn't come around.
Oh, that's what I wondered.
I've been sitting here writing,
Uh huh.
praying,
Doing what?
praying.
Praying?
Yeah.
Anything in particular?
I'll read it to you later.
Okay. Take care.
You too. Kiss, kiss. Should I start over? Here's what I got so far. You can't script this stuff. I've written 21 books. My name is Alex S. Gabor. I took that name legally in 1993 in the Redmond District Court, where I legally changed my name because I just quit the mortgage industry back then. And I quit it because I realized that I was participating in a big lie. The lie called money, mortgages, real estate, everything related to that, stocks and bonds and electronic forms of energy that was considered money. So Alex S. Gabor was first used when I was 12 years old. And I wrote this story, which I now call The Death of Barbarism, and I've turned it into a book where there were 12 people in a room, and you were the 13th person. And there had just been a nuclear war, and you were stuck in a bunker basement somewhere, and you were running out of food and water. And you had to vote amongst yourself who would go to get food and water and risk their life to help the others, save the others, keep the others alive, survive. And so I wrote that story when I was 12 years old. I was living in Canada, and my English teacher's name was Mr. Smith, of all things. And it was in a school in Downsview, Ontario, Toronto area. And so in the story that I first wrote then when I was 12, I stood up and volunteered to be the person. We didn't have to vote. I said, I'll just take responsibility and go. And the story ended where I was running to get away from falling nuclear particles. And I made it back with enough food and water, and we all survived because we found a way to get rid of the nuclear particles and the nuclear radiation in our bodies. And that's a whole different story, book. Somebody else wrote that book. I don't need to rewrite it. So, flash forward to present time. Here we are sitting, and I'm finishing this is my last book right here. It's the last book I'm going to write. I've been writing now for 13 years, and the last time I was working in gainful American employment was in 2002, when I went to a meeting in Topanga at Abuelita's Mexican restaurant on Topanga Canyon Boulevard, and met a Dorothy Reich, who was the head of the Progressive Democrats of the Santa Monica Mountains. And I don't know how I got in there, but somehow, I guess you could say I was guided. And in this meeting, they were called Progressive Democrats. And she happened to also own a mortgage company called Bankers Group, which was a doing business as name of BGIF Incorporated, which really stood for Bankers Group Investment and Finance Incorporated. And it was a California corporation, and it was her and an escrow officer named Leah. And frankly, I don't want to mention her last name because she was just a dupe of Dorothy. But cute little Jewish girl, woman, lady now, probably married, probably has kids, still lives in LA. And while I was working for her, her boyfriend read my first book I ever wrote, which was called, and I published it, Confessions of a Sex Crazed Money Man. And after I published that book in '93, I got out of the mortgage business and decided I'm just going to become a writer and write books. But at that time, the only thing I had was a bunch of scrambled thoughts, and that's what that book was, is a bunch of scrambled thoughts. But I picked the title because at the time, money and sex were the two biggest things, and might still be today, that young people are after. Pleasure, money, sex, whatever. So it didn't turn out the way I wanted it because the person I hired to edit it just butchered everything. It had no congruity. It just was a random series of thoughts. So I'm critiquing my own book. So I've been buying back that book ever since a lawyer told me, who was one of my clients as a counselor. I've been a spiritual counselor since 1977. So I've been practicing, quote, spiritual counseling since I was 21. And anyway, I'm getting off the subject. When I left the employ of Dorothy Reich, which was not really on good terms, what preceded it was her boyfriend yapping in her ear, telling her that I didn't believe that all men were created equal. So he didn't like that. He was an adamant politician. She was into progressive democratic whatever of America. And there was a whole group of people there. And Hollywood has sold America on progressive, the word progressive. If it's progressive, it's positive. If it's progressive, it's right for the country, that kind of stuff. So one day when she'd been falsifying documents on mortgage applications for years, and I'd only worked for her for 18 months, but it took me about a year to figure out what she was doing and how she was making all this money. And turned out it was during the period of time where you had these loan programs called no income, no asset verification. They called them NINA loans. And I remember one day I was the typist, the dog walker, the receptionist, the back office boy, the file cabinet manager, the loan files, the computer generator, and data entry person. And she would take these people's loan apps and I would enter their data into the computer, and then I'd automatically print out the application for them to sign with all these disclosure of laws and rigmarole and interest rate quantifications and multiplications and scenarios and blah blah. And one day I looked and I said, this is a bunch of bullshit. These people don't make this kind of money, and they're trying to borrow $1 million to buy, a $1.1 million house in Topanga, Beverly Hills area, that kind of price range. So she started yelling at me because I changed the numbers to what they really were. And I didn't do it on purpose. I was just like, you got to tell the truth in these documents. It says right here, if you sign this, you're under penalty of perjury. You're saying this shit's true. And so if there's any law in this country that hasn't been prosecuted by the FBI, for example, there's one. Perjury of everyone who applied for a loan in the mortgage industry between 19 let's start at 1977 and come all the way to present time 2022. How many years is that? I can't even do the math in my head anymore, but it's 22, 77, 87, 97, 2007, 2017, add 5, so that's 55 years of mortgage fraud upon America. And when you figure that out, you go, gee, if everybody knew that, nobody would borrow any money. The prices of houses would collapse and everybody could afford a home, and we wouldn't have a homeless problem because there's so many houses out there that it's just ridiculous. Anyway, so she yelled and screamed at me when she saw that I put the truth down there. And bless her soul, she was a Phi Beta Kappa with a certificate from the New York University, PhD in something, I don't know what, probably political bullshit, piled higher and deeper. But anyway, she starts yelling and screaming at me and calling me names and telling me how stupid I am and criticizing me, condemning me, and complaining about the truth on the document. And this really just surprised me because she'd been yelling at me many times. And I finally looked her straight in the eye and said, you know what? If you continue to yell at me, I'm going to start yelling back. Get it? And I walked away. So, I don't know what happened next, but she came running out of her office. I don't know if it was a couple days later, because I did it again. I didn't deliberately do this, okay? I just put down the truth on the application that was in the computer, right? And she knew that the numbers had to be matched up a certain way to get the loan qualified to be approved by an underwriter at either Wells Fargo or City Countrywide, or who was the other one that went out of business? I don't know. A whole bunch of them wiped out overnight because it was a joke, literally, and everybody knew it. And one day when I said, hey, you know, these loan applications aren't really accurate, they're fraudulent, basically, because they're lying and they're signing under penalties of perjury, and you, as the president and originator of this document, are stating that everything in there is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge. Well, to the best of your knowledge, true and accurate means it's true, not something you made up in your head. Okay? The legal definitions are there already. So when I pointed that out to her, she goes, well, everybody's doing it. And I'm like, oh, jeez. So somehow that didn't quite sit well with me. So I'm out there in the front, typing away, answering phones, being reception, greeting people come in for appointments, doing all that, being the bookkeeper, clerk, you know, coordinating with the advertising and managing her website for her, doing probably 50 different tasks for her every day, including going to walk her dog and get her bagels every Friday morning down the street at the bagel shop, restaurant, whatever. So she comes walking out and starts yelling and screaming, you got this paperwork wrong. And she throws it on the desk and she says, can't you do anything right? And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, And I got up and I swear to God, I think I've never yelled so loud in my whole life to anyone, at anyone, right in their face, like, you stupid fucking bitch! And it wasn't really an act. This was an act. This was a reenactment right there. And I probably did it better in real life. But anyway, she immediately goes, "You're fired." She wrote down on the paper, "Fired for inappropriate behavior." I was like, really? So it's appropriate for the boss to yell and scream at you and criticize you and cut you down and chop your balls off just because your boyfriend's going, "He doesn't believe everyone's born with equal rights." And that's not what it said in the book, by the way. But anyway, we butted heads and I was out of there. And I walked. When I left, I slammed the door so hard it shook the building, really. And what's funny about the whole thing is, you know, I never went back into the mortgage industry again after that because I had already written what I knew. And going back in it the second time, I was like, well, this just confirms my original suspicions, basically. And anyway, so she told, this is the irony. She calls me back a couple weeks later and says, "Hey, do you want to do a project?" I go, "What?" She goes, "Well, my boyfriend is trying to get on Social Security disability, and this guy goes to AA meetings for whatever alcoholism, drugism, narcotics, or whatever problem he had." And so I went to a couple of his meetings with him and listened to these people yap about their problems in the drug world and the bars of this country. And so he wants to get Social Security disability. I'm like, so? She says, "Well, we need someone to represent him at the hearing in the meeting with the California Department of Social Health Services or something like that." It was a federal government agency that was reviewing his application. So I said, "Okay, what's the deal?" Well, she said if he gets he'd been turned down for disability benefits over and over and over for years, like 5 years, because they don't accept alcoholism as a disease or a disability, or didn't. I don't know if they've changed that rule yet. But finally, this was his fifth try, and according to the law, you accumulate your potential disability payments until you get it approved. And so for 5 years, he was accruing like ten to $12,000, $1,000 a month in disability benefits that he should have got when he first applied, basically. And that's how this bureaucracy thing works. But point being that she offered me this project like on a commission basis. Like if you succeed, you can get 10% of the money. And at the time, I was eating up my savings, paying rent quickly, 900 a month to live in a one bedroom of a house, and have access to the beautiful house. But still, 900 a month was a lot back in 2002. You think it's 9,000 a month now, okay? But anyway, where am I going with all this anyway? The point is, she calls me back. I say, okay, 10%. She says, yeah. I said, okay. So if I get him his 50, 60,000, whatever it was, it was actually it turned out to be $65,000 that the government owed him. And when I went to the meeting with him as his representative, I'd already read all the documents, and there's no question the guy was disabled. Even though he could still play guitar, he wasn't getting paid to play guitar. He was a musician, and I don't even remember his name now. Probably shouldn't mention it because him and I don't get along, or never did, because he was always jealous because his girlfriend, who was my boss, would always stand in front of me and go, "How do I look today?" Like, if that ain't sexual harassment, I don't know what is. It'd be like me coming up to her and saying, "Hey, how does my penis look today?" Anyway. upshot of the whole story is I sat in front of this government agent, and he said, well, why should I grant this guy his his benefits and give him all his money? He'll just go out and blow it on drugs or alcohol or something. I said, well, I'll tell you what. I looked him straight in the eye and I said, hey, you and I both know he qualifies for this program, and you work for the government, and actually you work for him and me. So if you don't give him his benefits, guess what? He and I are both going to sue you personally for not following the law, and we're going to sue the government in a class action for everybody else that doesn't get what you say they're going to get under these laws that you wrote and approved and used to control people with. And he went, okay, thank you, meeting over. And within 10 days, he got this letter saying he'd been approved. He's got $65,000 coming within the next 10 days. That's how quick it happened. And I'm like, oh, great. I earned $6,500. Now I can pay my rent for the next 3 months and have money left over while I look for a better job than, you know, being I wasn't a lawyer. I was just a personal representative. You can have a personal representative. You don't need a lawyer in this country to get shit done. In fact, lawyers make things more complicated. That's why there's so many of them. And that's why there's so many troubles in this country. But anyway, so this is my last book. Oh, the end of that story is when I did get paid, she paid me $300. I'm like, what? So what? I'm going to sue her now for the rest of the money she promised me by her word. And that's the thing, you know. You screw me once, shame on me. Screw me once, deceive me once, lie to me once. I mean, just takes one time with me, okay? And it's been this way since I was a little child. And I found out that Santa Claus wasn't real. The Easter Bunny didn't come and leave eggs anywhere. And Thanksgiving wasn't about turkeys. You know, it's just like, wow. Screw me once, shame on you. Screw me twice, shame on me. Well, it ain't about shame, it's about learning. It should be screw me once, win for you. Screw me twice, win for me. Because that's all it takes is to learn your lesson is twice. Some people have to have it happen 3 times, maybe 4. I mean, I can count all the times I've been screwed in this country trying to do business, trying to be an entrepreneur, trying to start a business, trying to raise money for a business. I mean, all these factors go. I am so sick of business. Business sucks, man. In fact, everybody in this whole country should just stop doing business and get on that big tit of the federal government and just suck it dry until it dies like a giant octopus, because that's what we're all doing anyway. We're all working for the government, okay? So anyway, before I finish my last book, I've written my prayer book, and this is my prayer book, Church of Infinitology. I don't know how this is going to pan out because it's supposed to be live, and it's been going for I don't know how many minutes, an hour. So I've been on Truth Social lately, a lot, and I'll probably put this on Truth Social because I haven't been censored yet. But I'll tell you, I've been censored started with a company called iExchange. And on iExchange, you made predictions about stocks and stock prices. And I came up with a formula that said, okay, if the book value, if the company went bankrupt today, what would you get? And it would be like $5. So I'd say, well, if it's trading for higher than 2 times book value, short it. and if it's trading under 1 times its book value, then buy it. because it was simple math, okay? If it was trading at 80% of its book value, liquidation value, whatever, per share, you'd make 20% if it went to its book value, and even higher if somebody came along and said, you know what, I'll give you twice as much this company's worth if you'll take my shares in lieu of your shares. And I'd go, sure, I'll do that. Anyway, so all of a sudden, I was predicting like clockwork accuracy prices of stocks going down and prices of certain stocks going up. And what was happening was this giant churn of information and spreading of this information across this internet, and they called it iExchange, like the I exchange. Like, what do you see? I see that this is going to go down and that's going to go up. What do you think? It's a game. It was a big game. And I became one of the top 10 predictors of stocks. And I thought, man, if I could patent this, I'd be a trillionaire, which is a whole nother story. So I spent a lot of time on Truth Social lately, but iExchange went out of business when the stock market crashed. That was in 1990s, late 90s, okay? Big correction. Anyway, fast forward to being a writer, I'm on a roll with a company called Associate Content, owned by some guy named Luke something, who I had communications with, and I said, hey, how about I buy your company for $300 million and make it a subsidiary of my nonprofit organization so that all the revenue comes in tax-free and we can give the money away to certain good things in the country. And he rejected my offer. And then 2 years later, after I wrote 769 articles about all kinds of stuff going on in the country, in the world, in my reality, my perception of what was going on, the company was bought by Yahoo for $100 million, 1/3 of what I offered the guy. And they gave him stock in Yahoo. Well, then Yahoo stock crashed and Verizon took it over and they spun it out and the head woman got canned, whatever. Can't even remember her name now, but that's like, wow, that happened. You know, that really happened. People's lives were affected. And my writings were wiped out. I couldn't even get the data. It was like, I was lucky to get the titles of the articles I wrote. So I saved those, but the material, gone, wiped out, completely canceled. And that's what they call this thing called cancel culture. Culture is about everyone's ideas, not just one domineering idea, which is then used to make money off of everybody. Culture is about everybody, okay? Cult, the word, look it up. Culture, grow, groups, cultures. I mean, come on, look the word up. It's English. Anyway, I think I'm really off on a tangent. This book I started, let's see, 2014. So this book I've been writing in for 6 years, I think. Let's see, 10/26, 24. So 10 years would be 2024. On October 26th, I'll finish this book on October 26, 2022. So that'd be 6 years it took to write this book. And it's called A Prayer Book, Church of Infantology. So let's get back to the focus here, and then we'll be done. It says August 22nd, 2022, and 10/22/22, and the time is what? I can't even see the time. I don't know what time it is. It doesn't matter. But it's Soap Lake time in my book. It's SLT. So, dear Donald Trump, I've been on Truth Social lately, and I've noticed a few things. Let's see. You have been focused on the FBI because the FBI raid has focused you and and the whole country's attention on the FBI. But FBI corruption has been going on for at least 100 years. Let's go back to 1922. Let's look up, did the FBI even exist? What came before the FBI? Why does the FBI have all these files on everybody? Okay, anyway, so this corruption's been going on for at least 100 years. And it isn't easy to cure a cancer on freedom, truth, and justice. Okay? I don't want to get into the semantics of that statement. Okay? You might as well call it the federal bureaucracy of injustice. And that's exactly what it is. I personally had never heard of the FBI until 1977 when I was only 21 years old. 1977. 21. Let's see, how old am I now? Do you wonder? The FBI came to my church, believe it or not, and with sledgehammers and battering rams busted down the doors and took our Central Intelligence files. I didn't even know that my church had intelligence files on the government and that it had already been engaged in a long time battle or battles, wars with the federal government that started in 1950. So, it's a very long story, but the FDA raided my church in the 60s, then again in the 70s, and finally the IRS, after my church and our group of people filed more than 2,000 lawsuits against, and we dug up all the dirt we could find on the individuals now that we knew were anti-church, anti-freedom, anti-religion, anti-free speech, that are working in the FBI. It's kind of like, you ever have somebody come up to you, hey, you want to do a survey? And you voluntarily give up the information. And they don't even know you're gathering intelligence on them, basically. So we had a whole group of people go interview IRS employees all over the country. Anyway, so finally, when we presented them with all this evidence that, yeah, this is a church, and yeah, we have a freedom of religion under this document here, and blah, blah, and here's what we got on you that we're going to tell everybody if you don't stop and give us our tax exempt status, okay? So they finally relented and gave us tax exempt 501c3 status, okay? Meaning it's a nonprofit tax exempt, so when you donate money to that church, doesn't matter what church it is, if it's recognized as a tax exempt organization by the IRS, all the money you give it is deductible somehow on your tax return, okay? So it's been a long time and a long story since that happened. But it's well documented on the internet, and I won't get into the specifics on that unless somebody, I don't like comments on my videos, so maybe this video I'll let people make comments. If I post it on Truth Social, I might as well, huh? Actually, no, I'd rather have the comments on Truth Social, because I don't know about YouTube how long it's gonna last, right? This might not last forever. Somebody might not like it and cancel it, you know. Anyway, since this is a letter to Donald Trump and he got canceled on YouTube and Twitter, where else did he get canceled? Well, they've been trying to cancel him on CNN, but it ain't working, and so CNN is starting to get canceled. Poor Ted Turner, I bet he's rolling in his grave, really. God, one of the last of the great billionaires on earth. Anyway, my church is still there, but the media took over from where the government left off. their attacks, spreading of disinformation. That's what they did about our church. It's like defaming your church, defaming Christ, defaming Buddha. And Buddha's not even a god, okay? Come on. Anyway. But the reputation of that church, by the way, I'm not going to name names, only fools who don't know God still go to it to find God, okay? So why do people go to church? Well, they're looking for God. Why else would you go to church? Come on, give me one good reason why people go to church. Isn't it to go find God? So that church, if you don't know it, like I didn't know the history of the church. So when I was 17, I wind up in this church, and when I'm 23, I'm out of this church, and I'm like, wow, what just happened? What was that? And it went by, 6 years, gone. That's how quick it goes. So I've written 21 books, and these are the last two, 24, 25. And this second to the last book, called Prayer Book, Church of Infinitology, which is really what this book's about. That church is still there, but the media took over from where the government left off, and to this day the reputation of my church is so tarnished, only fools who don't know who God is still go to it to find God. That's where I left off. So I'm praying to the infinite infinita of infinities that your struggle with our government ends in victory for you, your family, your people, and the people of America, because my similar struggle didn't end that way, okay? I devoted 6 years of my life to my church for little pay, very little pay. In fact, today, the dollars that I was paid then are pennies today, comparatively to what they can buy, okay? Don't get me started on Freenomics now. But working for the church as a staff member for 6 years, put a roof over my head, got a good wife out of it for 15 years at least. An instant family with 2 boys that I helped raise, till they were big enough to beat me up. And food for all of us. So, you can't put a price on a good life. You can't put a price on a good country. You can't put a price on a good church. So I left that church, what was my church for 6 years, in 1980. The same year Mount St. Helens blew up and Reagan took over. Well, I was never too much into politics or interested in the subject. I was still searching for God. But when I stopped searching for the truth about God, me, and the history of America, God and the truth found me. God and the truth found me. No, I mean that. That's exactly what happened. Now, I was an ordained minister with lots of certificates and awards when I left the church in 1980. But when God and the truth found me, those symbols of religion, like the collar I wore, didn't mean anything compared to infinity. And by that I don't mean that as a mathematical symbol or concept, but as a real non-thing that rules our universes. And some know it, and some don't. So since God found me, I no longer wear clothes except maybe shorts. And I'm wearing shorts, I'm not sitting here naked. And this video isn't made for kids, so don't check that box when you publish it, right? That's one of the YouTube rules. And I hope Russell Brand watches this. Over there in England, where England swings like a pindle. I can't even remember the name. Pindle and Dew? Yeah. Roger Miller, look him up. Anyway, back to the letter to Donald Trump. He sent maybe shorts. I wear shorts to cover my private parts. That's somebody else's department. They made a movie about him, Private Parts. Look it up. And I don't wear shoes usually, so that when my feet touch the earth, this is part of the letter. I haven't edited it yet. I might just publish the video and save the book for later publishing. Maybe after I'm dead. So I no longer wear clothes or shoes, except maybe shorts to cover my private parts. It's pretty hot here all the time. Summer, this is the first day I could get out and not be sweating just sitting here. Okay? Sweating, just sitting. Ever done that? Just start sweating, just sitting, not doing nothing, anything at all. You're just sitting and you start sweating. Anyway. So when my feet touch the earth, I feel the connections between my body and the body of Christ, the infinite infinitor of infinities, and you. Whoa, read that again. When I touch the earth with my bare feet, I feel the connections between my body and the body of Christ, the infinite infinitor of infinities, and you. What did he just say? You see, this is a letter to Donald Trump. You see, we both know there are good forces and bad forces. We also know that good forces can be used for evil purposes, like fires for arson or nuclear energy for destroying millions of people with one bomb in one city, or maybe thousands of cities simultaneously, right? Right now, I can tell you one truth that the FBI will never reveal to the public. There are at least 2022 nuclear warheads that are programmed by artificial intelligence and modern computer technology that with a single mistake or wrong thought can simultaneously destroy every city in America with a population over 1 million people overnight, simultaneously. So count how many cities there are in America. Let's see. Well, there's the biggest ones I know of are Chicago, LA, Detroit, Washington, D.C. There's a lot of people there. We certainly know that LA is one of the biggest cities, and New York. So those 6 cities alone contain about 50 million people. Okay. So 6 bullets, poof, gone. 60 million people. At least 1 million people in each of those cities. Or excuse me, 10 million in the surrounding area. I mean, you count the whole metropolitan area as a city, right? Metropolitan Chicago, Detroit, LA, blah. So, like in the times of Sodom and Gomorrah or Noah, God sometimes with a single thought, think about it, will cause millions of death to cleanse the earth of evil and corrupt forces. That's pretty deep. I mean, you have to read it. Read the letter. I'm going to put it on Google Docs probably, if I have time. And then I'll publish it on, see how Google Docs works with True Social. I'm going to see how that works. But I'll definitely put this video on there and see if anybody likes it. So, there's a hashtag I'm laughing about on True Social. I call it Follow the Fool. Right? Hashtag Follow the Fool. So, let's say 1 million people see that hashtag on True Social, and True Social pays me a penny for creating that hashtag. So a million penny, that's $10,000. I think that's what that hashtag is worth, because there's a Primus video that's already had 400,000 views on YouTube, right? Primus, look them up, called Follow the Fool. All right, so here we go. God, sometimes with a single thought, will cause millions of deaths to cleanse the earth of evil and corrupt forces. Here is another truth that the FBI and the CIA won't allow to be revealed or tell you, and they'll come after you if you repeat it too many times. Yeah, Alex Jones he went up against the 6 intelligence agencies in America. 6 intelligence agencies, 6 bureaucracies, 6 what? How many are there? How many agencies of the government are there? Are there 666 yet? Anyway, if you repeat it too many times, this is what I'm telling you. Here's a truth I'm about to tell you, that if you repeat it too many times, they will come for you. Here it is. There is such a thing as infinite intelligence. There is such a thing as infinite knowledge. There is such a thing as infinite awareness. Okay, so now you're getting deep, okay? And if you can tap into this infinite ability here, then you have tapped into God. Now that's pretty heavy, okay? But God has so many meanings, they too have become infinite. Follow me there? Are you following me? Okay. If you tapped into infinite intelligence, if you tapped into infinite awareness, and you tapped into infinite knowledge, forget the data. We're talking about knowledge here. Knowledge is stuff you can be certain of, and you never waver from it. You know it to be true. You know it to be truth, and no amount of opinions can change that fact that it's truth. Okay, that's why I like True Social, because of the name and everything. Okay, it's like they're looking for the truth here. Let's give it to them. So if you tap into these abilities, these infinite abilities, then you have tapped into God. But God has so many meanings, they too have become infinite. But if you are blessed by the infinite infinitor of infinities, and that topic is covered in a book I wrote, it's published online if anybody wants to read it. Just look up infinitology on Quora, and there's a Church of Infinitology space. Just go there, read it, send me your comments on Truth Social. I'm going to wind up advertising this on Truth Social. You watch. Maybe. Think I should give them 10 million to advertise this video on Truth Social? You think it's good enough for that? Is it worth that? Is it worth it? Tell me. Let me know. Let me know. Let me finish the letter. I'm in the middle of writing it. I keep getting interrupted by my infinite self. I sure hope Russell Brand sees this. Anyway. But if you are blessed by the infiniter of infinities with these infinite abilities, what you call God, then you too can achieve infinite intelligence, infinite knowledge, infinite wisdom, infinite awareness. These things are covered on a space on Quora called, and I'm a writer, and I've made movies before too, but nowadays you don't need a Hollywood studio to make a movie, okay? The cost of communication has come way down. Anyway, actually, it's gone way up if you're telling the truth. But anyway, that's kind of true, maybe, if you think about it long enough. So, if you get this infinite awareness, you can look into every single file, every single piece of data, every byte of information on every computer in the government's files of all the Earth's governments, not just the U.S. government, the whole planet. That's what I'm telling you. Infinite awareness now, come on. Don't think it can't be true. You can figure out the lies and you can separate the facts from fiction and see the truth. So let me repeat that. Because I kind of messed that line up. This is not scripted. This is all spontaneous. Okay, the letter is spontaneous. The video is spontaneous. The writing is spontaneous. Okay, it's not something that let me see. I'm gonna write this story. No, I just write. Okay, a writer writes. That's what my girlfriend tells me. A writer writes. If you're a writer, go write. Okay, I'm writing. Okay, and if you use that infinite awareness, you can look into every single file, every single piece of data, every byte of information on every computer, the governments of all the earths, every government on the planet is possession. I gotta edit that. See, that's why I got thrown up. And know the lies. You can easily separate out the facts from fiction and see the truth. And like I said, this will shake people up. Like I said, in a past life, yeah, fly. Like I said, quote, I have to put that in quotes, in a past life, comma, 2022, years ago. Let's read that again. If you can see into all the files, you can know the truth. And like I said, in a past life, 2,222 years ago, the truth shall set you free, but no matter where you look, you will only find lies, illusion, and deception. So when you stop searching, praying, get off of me, desiring the truth will find you, and only God can set you free. And I think I'll just end it there. Love, Alex S. Gabor, with an infinity symbol in my signature. I kind of like it. Tell me if you like it. If you don't like it, I can delete it myself, okay? If it's that bad, I'll delete it myself. So, this book, I don't know. Should I sell it? Should I sell out to money? Honey? You gotta watch Dana Carvey, man. He's funny. His father calls him Money. Watch it on Netflix. I think we're done. I don't know how to turn this off. Let's see. How long was that? Hour and a half. Holy cow. Okay, what do we do? Done. Share. Here we go. Share it on where? God, you can share it on Twitter. True Social. Let's see. It goes right there. Alex. Hashtag Alex S. Gabor. A better than at Alex Jones production. I like that. A better than Alex Jones production. Presto. And I'll put it under hashtag ACS. And everybody on True Social knows that means associated content. So let's see, did it go? Did it go on there? No, we're still working. 91 minutes, 33 seconds. Oh, okay, we're done.